Hello everyone, it is time for this week's live stream. We're using a completely different microphone than I'm trying out. It picks up every sound in the room. So I'm going to have to be super quiet around it and hopefully not drive you guys crazy with all kinds of incidentals. But it really is good for an interview where you have a couple of people. And since that will be happening in 2 weeks, Marna is almost here. It is 13 days out and it is getting more stressful for me, of course, as I'm getting everything locked in and getting everything organized. So hi Amar, Triggerfish is here. Hi Thomas, hey Elmer, Santana Reef is here. Rick is here and Brennan's Reef. Hello, I'm just going to talk to the 8 of you today. There's Annie and there's Ryan. Hey Ryan, Ryan is actually a sponsor of Marna. So let me just pull that up on my screen. Again, this microphone's going to hear everything I do. So I apologize in advance, but we are just going to have to play nicely. So here are the sponsors for Marna 2023. Fritz, Benepets, Reef Nutrition, Slide Lock, Two Little Fishies, Seache, Neptune, Ecotech, AI. That's some powerful hitters right there. And I really do appreciate that they have provided funds and prizes for the event so that way you guys can benefit between every presentation. The funding is helping cover expenses, which includes gear. It includes paying the speakers, paying the moderators, and keep the live chat nice and friendly. Some of the travel transport for people coming here. That's all part of the expenses that I have to cover somehow, or I'm paying for it myself. And if I end up paying for it myself, Mila's Reef is going to be a huge sponsor of Marna and be blatantly over-the-top ridiculous. And I don't want to do that. I wanted to just do a nice show and give some love to all the sponsors. I do have a couple of other people flying in to assist with things, which will help with production and keep my hands off the keyboard, hopefully, and allow me just to interact with the different presenters. And it is a 24-hour marathon, so I hope you are catching up on sleep, like right now. I hope you're getting 1 extra hour every single night to build up a buffer for September 9th, because that's when we start at 9 a.m., and we go all the way until 9 a.m. the next day. We have speakers from American Samoa, England, Australia, Canada, America. Those are just a few off the top of my head. I think there might be a couple others snuck in there. But let me see. I got the list in front of me. Oh, I say America, but I mean, we've got people from Illinois, from Florida, from Tennessee, from Texas, and also from Hawaii. So, I mean, how cool is that? And we are going to be talking with people that dive. We have people that aquaculture. We have people that are protecting the corals for the future. That's the latest speaker that just said yes today. And we have a few speaker slots left that I'm still filling. So hopefully everything will go well and we'll have a fantastic event. And then we'll have it done and behind us and I can go to the next project I need to work on. So there is another announcement rolling out here very soon. Just keep your eyes open. You'll see it when they announce it. And then you'll know. In the meantime, I guess I should do a little bit of business stuff here. Let's see if I can find anything. It's all hiding. We're going to talk about Reef Trace. Let me put this on the screen. So Reef Trace is the app that I use. Oh, let me move myself over here a little bit. That'll make more sense. Is the app that I use to keep track of what's going on with my aquarium. It lets me track my parameters. I have told you guys that I'm going to be working on videos of how I use the app to kind of help you understand it better. And as soon as I can do it, I will do it. I actually had to get the latest version back onto my phone because I have the beta. I always had the beta. And my beta had ended. I couldn't even load it. So I've got the new version on my phone, and I will be doing some screenshot videos and explaining it. And hopefully it'll be something that they will like, and then you will like, and it'll make sense. And you're like, oh, I didn't know I could do these things. Thank you for explaining it. So that is happening. Also, I want to thank Fritz for being a sponsor of my channel here on YouTube. So these guys, let me scoot over a little bit, give them the credit. Look, that's them, that's them. And they are the ones supplying my salt for my aquarium. But I barely changed my water, so they're really saving so much money. But no, seriously, there's many products on the market. One of the products that helped my tank not too long ago was getting nitrates lowered using Fritz 460. So that is something that I will continue to be using to get those numbers where I like them to stay. I did have a bump where they went up. Things were going wrong with my algae turf scrubber, and now I've got to address it again. But that's okay. We'll get it figured out. And We should mention that if you haven't joined Club Mila's Reef, please do join. Club Mila's Reef is a group on Facebook that I set up 5 years ago. This is still August, right? 5 years ago this month. And I created it as an area where people could talk to each other every single day about their hobby, the saltwater hobby, and it's a peaceful place. There's no aggression, there's no trolls, there's no, because we don't allow it. It's against the rules. And so we just have a nice, friendly group. And I welcome you. If you haven't joined yet, come join us. And, if you have a tank you want us to see, show it to us. I want to see your tanks. I saw someone who I've known for many years, and he just posted an updated picture of his tank, and the coralline was spreading everywhere. So beautiful. The tank looked very mature, and I was really happy to see it. So, I get inspiration from your tanks as well. I kind of need you to give me content, if you know what I mean. I need the visual stimulation. It helps me a lot with making sure that that my brain is staying on track. And I'm always online, so I'm always looking at things, and I'm always absorbing information. And I do really enjoy seeing beautiful, healthy, mature tanks that are growing in and becoming greater. So if you haven't joined, it's facebook.com/groups/MeLovesReef. And then, of course, I already talked about this, but I'll just throw it on the screen just so we have it. There it is, right there. So I'm going to leave that up there for a little bit, and I'm going to scoot myself a little bit more back here because I can be more centered. Marna is going to be a lot of fun. And the reason we created a Marna, us, I like to say we because it was a team effort. It wasn't just me. Actually, a friend of mine, Kyle, I think is the one that thought it up. I believe he was the one that was pushing for this when Marna was canceled this year. Marna is the trade show I go to every single year. I've been going to it since 2002. This would have been year 21. And when they a few months ago announced it was canceled, I was upset because I need my Marna. And so Kyle said you should make Marna. And I just thought that's hilarious. And then later on, I checked with Marna to make sure they wouldn't mind, and they said go for it. So I am doing this event as a placeholder because next year there will be another Marna. And in the meantime, there just won't be a hole in this year because I just felt like that was wrong. I feel like I left somebody out. How about Coral Magazine? So Coral Magazine is a magazine I recommend everyone read. The subscription is a bargain. If you aren't subscribed, you are making a mistake. It costs $39 for 6 issues. That is nothing. That is nothing. What is that? 5 snails? I don't know. 2 peppermint shrimp? A bag of frag plugs? I don't know. I don't know what you guys buy. But the point is, you should be subscribed. So go to coralmagazine.com/Melev. That way they just know that you came from my channel. I don't get any commission off of this. I am promoting them because it's a great magazine. And to be honest, if you buy the magazine one at a time, it's $10 an issue. That's $60. And you're getting it for $39 delivered to your door with no, additional shipping. When I sell you one from melevsreef.com and you buy the magazine, you're going to pay $10 for the magazine and $5 shipping. That's $15 for one. So get a subscription. Do it. Do it now. Just hit pause. Go buy it. Come back. No. So the magazine I'm showing you right now is the last issue, the current one that I've been reading for the last couple of months. I'm done. And the new one is going to arrive in our mailboxes probably sometime next week. So that will be a whole new set of information, new things to read and learn about. I highly recommend this magazine. I could not recommend it more. So please do read Coral. And like I said, if you don't want to subscribe, if you want to spend the $39, then buy one for me for $10 and see what you think. I think you're going to love it. I think you're going to say, wow, he was right. I should have just subscribed from the beginning. Okay. All right, let me get myself fully centered here. And let's talk about today's topic. Because I feel like we need to talk about feeding dry foods to your aquarium. This is a short topic, so we will go from this conversation straight into your questions, and we'll do a Q&A. And hopefully Jack won't be too loud in the background, and the sound will be okay. I'm trying very hard not to touch my desk now that I've done those few things I had to do, so you won't have a lot of rustling things that this microphone probably picked up. But I needed to go through a live stream with it so then I can listen to the show after it's done and see how bad it was. And that's the only way I can learn, because otherwise it's a mystery. and I'd rather just be productive. I do want to show you something that I got for Marna really quick. Another thing that makes sound. I got one of these. So this is a Mac Mini that's souped up. It's got a bunch of ports on the back. It can handle multiple cameras. It can handle multiple things. It's got the M1 chip. So I got that, and that will allow the production quality of the show to go well. And I also got this, which is the Atem Mini Pro, which has a bunch of ports on the back to plug into for cameras and audio and all that kind of stuff, with a bunch of buttons on the top for running the show. And like I said, I hope I don't have to touch any of them, but if I do, it's here. So, like I said, new gear for the event costs money too. And so I'm trying to make sure that I break even on this thing. I didn't even mention, and I should, that the raffle portion, there will be 24 raffles during the 24-hour event. So after each presentation, we go into a raffle, and there's something to win. The money that you are giving Marna, when you're buying raffle tickets, it's going to the Coral Restoration Foundation in Florida. Those guys have been working for more than a decade on planting corals in the reef to replace what's been lost. At one point, 2 species of coral were almost completely gone. They were just, let's just say 97% extinct. And there was just a little tiny bit hanging in there. And they have planted something like, I forget the number. I think it's 250,000 frags since this got started. Maybe the number's even higher. And actually, our first speaker, Marna, is from the Coral Restoration Foundation, and is going to teach us all the things of what's going on, especially what's going on now. I'm sure that's going to come up in conversation because of the heat wave that hit so hard in Florida that the water was 100 degrees. And so a lot of corals that they had planted years ago that were colonies turned white. All the zooanthellae came out, and that's bad, obviously, and hopefully those corals will regain it again and get their color back. If comes down to how long those corals are in there. And they also have pulled a lot of their corals out of certain areas and put them in facilities where the water temperature, I think they said, was only 85, so that when the oceans are in that area are cooler, which has to happen, they can replant them back out. They can put them back out where they go. And there's other areas where the corals have been resilient and handled the heat. So anyway, Coral Restoration Foundation is going to benefit from Marna because all the proceeds from the raffle is going to go to them. And then the other cost that the event has, didn't mention earlier, is that shipping you the raffle prizes, someone's got to pay for that. So it's either going to be me or sponsors. In other words, depending how much money comes in. But it'll be me no matter what. But I got to ship all these things to you. Now, if you're an international winner, and this will be on the website when it's time to buy tickets, if you're an international winner of a prize, I need you to cover the cost of shipping. Because it's going to be much higher than it would be inside the U.S. But I don't want anyone to feel excluded. So you definitely can enter the raffle, and I welcome you to, but you're going to have to handle the shipping part. But you'll get the prize. And, if you're getting something fantastic, like a controller or a light or something, shipping only is going to be a great deal compared to just buying the product outright, plus shipping. So that's that. All right. Let's get into our topic. Okay, so when it comes to feeding dry foods to our fish, there are some choices. Commonly, it's going to either be flake food or pellet food, but there's also sheet algae. And then there's liquid foods as well, but we're going to stick with dry. I want to talk about the things that are packaged in a way that they have no moisture content. So, for example, here's a jar of Benepets. So this is their new Benepellet for LPS corals. And I'm going to hold this up to the camera, I hope. So you can see inside. I'm going to try not to spill it all over my desk. Here, I'm going to do... I was going to put the lid underneath in case I spilled some, and I threw it everywhere. Jack, come eat this. So anyway, here inside are the pellets. These right here are, I think, the 2.5 millimeter size, so they're kind of large. And yeah, they're all over my keyboard now. That must have sounded great on the microphone, too. All right. No, believe it or not, I've been told repeatedly that Jack can eat these pellets. So that is going to be okay. I don't have to worry about her. And I don't have to worry about vacuuming because she's got a tongue and she'll just do it. All right, so pellet food. There are two different kinds of pellet food. Well, there's multiple kinds, but 2 kinds that come to mind would be fast sinking or slow sinking pellets. Some people like pellets that go down very gradually, so they stay in the water column longer, and the fish can come gobble them up. Versus if they fall to the bottom very quickly, then you're going to have to rely on the fish going to the sand bed and finding the food and pecking it off the sand itself, off the substrate. And so people are picky. They want a certain type of pellet. These things are everywhere. I probably dropped 200 pellets here. At least, I think, none got in my coffee. Benefits. They are a sponsor of the event. It's okay. We can have pellets on the desk. Now, there's going to be omnivore pellet food. There's going to be herbivore pellet food. So you've got the different types. I used to use Formula 1 and Formula 2 back in the day. And the omnivore was reddish and the herbivore was greenish. And that was real simple. I would use omnivore one day and herbivore the next day, and I just cycled back and forth. But if you are feeling like you want to make sure all your fish are being fed equally every single day, you could take a little bit of each. You could combine it and put that in the tank. Now, there's some techniques of putting food in your tank that should be addressed. If you just take food and you just fling it in and let it just bounce off, the canopy and into the water, or it just ricochets off the light and drops on the tank, it may stick to the surface because it's not wet yet, and it could just go straight down and into the overflow box and down the drain and be gone. If you have an all-in-one, it could just suck itself right in along the surface and go through those little teeth into the back area and just it's wasted. It's either going to land up in it's going to trap in filter floss, it's going to settle to the bottom of the section in the back, it could be skimmed out possibly, it could be just sitting there dissolving quietly but not enough for anything to eat it in a filter sock, even if you have mesh socks. So when you are putting food in the tank, it's always good to get the food in the water. Now lately, I have been using DKI, which is from Easy Reefs. And there's 4 bottles. I just grabbed one. And this one here, I'm not going to spill this one. Oh, no way. This one here has, I got to get the right angle, and there's no light. You can't see it. They are really tiny. I mean, I don't know if the dimensions are on this bottle. There it is, 0.8 of a millimeter. Really, really, really fine pellets. And this is the beta carotene. Like I said, there's 4 different flavors or nutrient factors, and this is one. I don't even remember them by heart, so I'm not going to say something wrong. This is 1 of 4. I've put in some of each jar in my frozen food. Even though the frozen food has some in it already, I'm enhancing my food with more. And so every single night, I take my little tiny bowl. It's one of those little dishes that you get a kid's serving of applesauce. Matter of fact, I just bought a 6-pack of applesauce to have new bowls. I'll eat it, and then I'll have my little bowls. And I take my frozen food, I break it up, I put it inside that little bowl, I add some RO water to let it dissolve, and then I take my 4 flavors and I pour it on top to get in the 4 different nutrients on top of the food itself to give my fish the best they can possibly have. And by doing that, I have mixed in all my foods together. And I've mixed in my dry food in the bowl of water in advance so that it's not going to float on the surface. It's sitting in water for about 10 minutes. And I even stir it, and it's really in there. And then I will go over to Caitlin's Reef. I take a pipette, and I will slurp up the pellets that have gotten wet, along with some mysis, along with some rods food, along with some fish roe. All of that is in the pipette, and I squirt that in the tank 3 times. Then I go over to my frag tank that has 3 little clownfish, and I give them 3 squirts. And then I go to the anemone temporary cube that's almost 2 years old that has, a dozen or 14 fish in there. And I put in 14 squirts of the food. And then the bulk of the food in that bowl gets poured into the reef across the full length of the tank so that the food is everywhere. It looks like Happy New Year with the confetti coming down. There's mysis going everywhere in the tank, and everyone has a chance to eat for about 2 minutes, and then it's gone. So if you are wanting to put dry food in your tank with your frozen, I would add it to the mixture with the fluid to let it get fully saturated before you add it to the tank. And that way, when you pour it in or you squirt it in, it will not be on the surface. It will go into the water column. The flow in the tank will move the food around. I do want to also mention that I always turn off my return pump when I feed my reef frozen food, not so much with dry food. With frozen food, I go ahead and I hit the return pump button. It's a feed button, and it stops the return pump, and it stops my protein skimmer for 10 minutes, technically 15. The return pump is off for 10 minutes. The food is in the tank. The fish eat in 2 minutes flat. 8 minutes later, the return pump comes on. 5 minutes after that, the protein skimmer comes on. The reason I staggered those two is because when the return pump is off, the water level in my sump has risen, and my protein skimmer would otherwise overflow because it's standing in too much water. So by putting that, I kill it, I turn off the skimmer entirely, and then when the return pump comes on, I give it 5 whole minutes, which is way longer than it needs. All it needs is 30 seconds, but I wait 5 whole minutes for the water levels to all equalize to the normal height. You know, the tank is full, the sump is back to its normal height, the skimmer is sitting in its right body of water, and it comes to life. Now, if I was using a type of food where I needed it in the water column longer, like let's say I was including phytoplankton or something along those lines, I could actually set the timer in my Apex to have the protein skimmer come on 45 minutes later instead of 5 minutes later. So the return pump comes back on, all the food, all the phyto, all the stuff, all the nutrients is blown around the tank for 45 minutes, and then finally the skimmer comes back to life. And then it's on for 23 hours and 15 minutes for the next one day. So that is a method. Now, if you use an auto feeder and you want to fill it up with pellet food, the auto feeder that I've used for many, many years is from Eheim. And it is something you could buy at PetSmart or Petco, one of those places, or Amazon. And at one point, I discovered during one of my trips to PetSmart that they had the exact same feeder in another box on a different aisle to feed turtles that was $10 less. And I'm holding these boxes up side by side. Turtle feeder, fish feeder. And I mean, they are identical. I even opened up the packaging. I looked at everything. There's no difference other than it says turtle on the front, and it costs less. So I've been using turtle feeders for a while. But you may be using the AFS from Neptune, which is a device that mounts on the top of the tank. It uses an Aquabus cable to your controller. You put your dry food in there, and the front panel comes out, and it does a 360-degree pivot and drops some food in the tank. The Eheim auto feeder doesn't have this thing that comes out. It just has a drum on the front with a little tiny trap door that you set to the exact size you like, and then it'll twist as many times as you want. When I was using the Eheim on my tank in the past, I had it put in food twice a day, and then I put in my frozen food at night. So I would tell it at noon to turn 1 rotation, and then at 6:30, 2 rotations, and then at 9:30 I fed the frozen food. And that was my method for a super long time. And then at some point, I don't remember why, I just took it off the tank and I haven't done it. But the other thing that I did, I came up with a solution for keeping the food coming out of the auto feeder from going across the surface and down the drain, like I mentioned earlier. So I didn't have a nice shiny new one to show you because I didn't have enough time before I had to start the show. By the way, I started the show on time today. I should get bonus points. All right. So I came up, look at this thing is filthy. Yeah. This right here is my Eheim auto feeder chimney. And I came up with this concept a decade ago, maybe longer. And I even showed it to Eheim, said, you guys should be making this. But anyway, I make it. So if you want one, I can make it for your tank. It looks just like this, except there's a nice pretty sticker on the front. And you put Velcro on this part here, and you put Velcro on the top of the tank, and you will mount it. And now it stays there. And this part is in the water. Okay, so here's your water line, and here is your chimney pushed down through into the water, so there's a little puddle of water in there. And then you put your auto feeder on top, and I supply the Velcro too. You put a little piece of Velcro here, you put your auto feeder onto that. Now the feeder is on this, and this is on the tank. It all stays in place, and when the drum turns, the food falls here. It sits on the water, it gets wet, and then it starts to drizzle into the reef. If it doesn't drizzle in, it's because the fish already went here and started eating it. And a long time ago, I had one of these guys on my tank, and Spock, being the voracious fish that she is, would come in here and attack all the pellets and try to get them all. And as she's gobbling it up, it was literally come out her gills, and the fish would go behind her gills to eat the food she didn't swallow into her stomach. But she one day pulled the entire feeder out of the tank, or into the tank, with the auto feeder on top. It all came in, and so I had to redesign it a little bit differently so that would never happen again. I made this where it wasn't, so I've had people say, can you make this part much longer? You don't want it to be longer. You do not need it to be longer. You need to just have it underwater, maybe half an inch. That difference of making this shorter prevented Spock from pulling it into the tank accidentally. And I never had that problem. No one's had that problem. I've heard no one complain about getting these from me. they work really well. So in the beginning, I made these out of clear. See how dirty everything is? It sits in my room forever. So this one right here was what I used originally. And then you can take it and you can soak it in something like pump clean, citric acid, muriatic acid, vinegar, and you can scrape it all clean. It looks brand new again, put it back in the tank, and it's basically invisible because it's all clear. But if you leave it on the tank a long time, it'll grow coralline, as you can see. And it's not a huge eyesore because it's this little rectangle in the top corner of your tank on one end. Now, I later made this part out of black because I thought it looked better. And so normally this is the style you would get. Now, sorry, I know I'm making extra noises. I got to be really cognizant with this microphone. I did notice someone says, how do I get a ticket to Marna? Well, you spelled it wrong, first of all. I'm highly offended. There are no tickets to attend. You get to go for free. There's no cost for that, which is fantastic. The only money you'll be spending is for raffle tickets. And I hope you guys buy a lot of them because we need to raise money for CRF and maybe cover some cost of the shipping. So now, there are other options on the market. Two Little Fishies sells a feeding ring that sounds like what it is. It's a circle that sits on the surface of the water. It just floats there with a little tiny arm, and then I think it's a magnet that holds it to the glass. And that little circle could be under your auto feeder. And so that's another method. I've seen people... Jack, are you getting the pellets? Oh my God, there's like 1,000 pellets on the carpet. Are you going to eat them? Here, let me put some in my hand and see if you'll eat them. What do you think? Right here. Are they good? Okay, eat the rest. I've seen other people that would put their auto feeder up higher inside their canopy, and they'd put some kind of a thing underneath. Like maybe they cut off the top of a 2-liter bottle, they inverted it, and they have the auto feeder go into the top of the 2-liter bottle, and it comes together like a funnel, and then goes into the water column. That's another method. When it comes to different methods, how you get the food into the water, you can be as imaginative as you want. But I do make these auto feeder chimney brackets, and I do appreciate making money. So if you buy things from Mila's Reef, you help keep this channel alive, and you help keep me alive, and you help make sure that Jack gets fed, not just pellet food. So, all right. Another thing when it comes to feeding dry foods is nori. By the way, Jack likes nori too, which is funny. Nori is a sheet of algae that has been baked, and there are quite a few available online. Normally, you want to get something that's just algae, nothing else has been added. That's the normal goal. I actually sell the bulk pack of nori from Two Little Fishies on Mila's Reef. So if you would like to buy from me, you can. And this is a really good food. And I have a cold tang in my tank that has a white tail. And years ago, it had a real problem on its face where it's got like these, and if you watch the video closely, you'll see like there's a hole on the cheek, and it's like caved in. And I didn't know what caused it. And then she had a hole up higher, and then she had a thing on this cheek. I'm like, wow, it's going all over her head. It's so weird. But her stomach area didn't look thin. None of the other fish had it. It definitely did not look like or act like HLLE, which is head and lateral line disease. So it wasn't a carbon thing. Like, they say, well, carbon can do this. No, it wasn't that either. One of my friends, a former president of DFW Mass, told me, actually, I don't think you're putting enough nori in your tank. How often do you use it? It's like, I don't know, maybe once a week, possibly twice. And he's like, you need to be feeding that way more to that fish. So I've stepped up my game. I am trying super hard to make it a habit to put in nori every single day. Now, this is how I used to feed it. I used to use one of these Two Little Fishies. I'm talking about them a lot today. It's great. This is their magnetic feeding clip that you can put in the tank. And if you ever bring the two halves together, do not pull them apart. Because if you pull them apart like this, you are breaking the seal where the magnet is inside, and then water will get in there and will rust the magnet, which is causing chaos in your tank. And people would say, oh, that feeding clip killed my reef. I'm like, no, it didn't. It didn't kill your reef. It may have hurt some corals, but it didn't kill your reef. Okay, number one, we've got rid of the exaggeration. Do we want a rusting magnet in our tank? Absolutely not. Why did it rust? Was it a bad product? No, it's because the users are pulling it apart. You want to slide it apart. If you slide, you're not breaking the seal. They also changed the design of this also because people wouldn't listen and they kept pulling it apart. So this right here now is a piece that has another part pushed in like a sleeve, and inside is the magnet. And you can tell there's no water because it's quiet. It just rattles. If it was full of water, it'd be sluggish and sound gloopy, but it's not. The nice thing about this is it's an air pocket, so when it comes loose, if it does, it will float across the surface of your tank if it's not carrying a huge load of food on it. And so when Spock would pull this off the tank, it would float and blow around, and I'd go chase it down and get it. And there was this one time I really wish I'd filmed it because it was such a funny, hard to believe moment. This part here, the other half of the magnet, will stay on the glass pretty well. This rubber stuff, whatever it is, it kind of sticks to the glass. Now, it's not bolted on by any means, right? But you've got it sitting here, you've got the other half on the other side of the glass. It's just holding like this, and it just kind of, because it's sitting there a while, it just attracts to the glass and does well. And if this part were to be pulled loose by a fish, it kind of stays. Not always, but it can. So there was this one time I had the clip on the end of my Reef, and Spock was yanking on the Nori, super excited, and the piece went off, and I was like, ah. So I went all the way around the tank, and I'm watching it as it's traveling. And I came around the backside, and I wanted to reach in and grab it, of course, right, from the top of the tank. And it kept traveling, and it dipped down because of the vortex. It blew it downward, or the fish did something, and it changed course, and it went down. And it went all the way down and went right back to the thing on the glass. It was unbelievable. I could never do this twice. That's why I said I wish I'd filmed it. I didn't expect that to happen, but there it was, back on the glass. And the fish just kept eating. And I was like, that was insane. So anyway, I really like this feeding clip. I've been using it for many, many years. And you just slide it apart. But now, how do we put the Nori in there? This is something that people need to learn. So some people might do this. And then the fish comes, and they just pull it right off. And it blows, and it wraps around a power head, or it gets into the rock work, and you're like, oh my God, my phosphates. You know, you want the phosphates in the belly of your fish, right? You don't want it sitting there rotting away on a rock, or going into the overflow box, or sitting in a filter sock, or something like that. Now, the way I do this is really simple. I took my full sheet. You can tear it in half, but I just use scissors, and I cut it in half. So this is how much I'm going to put in my tank. This is what my tank gets daily, if I don't forget, to feed my 4 tanks. So if you're trying to figure out how much food you need for your tanks, I use half a sheet for 4 tanks. My friend Tammy had an 800-gallon Reef, and I think she had a dozen tanks, if not more. And she would take multiple sheets, wrap them around a PVC pipe with rubber bands, and submerge that in the tank, and the fish would go I mean, it was just like the Tasmanian devil, just roar, and they just destroyed it. Or piranha is a better example. And they just attacked it, and it was all gone. It was all consumed. But for me, I use half a sheet. I fold it in half. Trying to remember how I do this because I've changed since I use something new now. And then I think I just rolled it up. Yeah, so I just rolled it up to make it nice and small. I fold it in half. I take my wet half, my clip, I put it in there, and then I pinch this super hard with my fingers, and then I'll put this in the tank with the magnet on the outside about halfway down and let the fish pick at it until it's gone. And they can pick and bite and snap at it, and it does not come out of the clip because of the way I put it in there. So if you do the fold in half, roll, and then pinch it in half, and then really squeeze it, you'll have good success with that. Other methods exist, such as using a pouch that you can put the Nori inside, and it's got a grill on there, and or a grid, I should say, and they bite through the little tiny holes. But I thought this was a good method. Now, about, I guess it was a year ago, when I was at Marna, I stumbled across a booth where this guy had these colorful pipes, and they were holding on to the tank with a magnet, and it was called the Nori Nibbler. And I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, a great idea. So you have this round PVC pipe, I think it's 1.5 inches, and then they had 3D, well actually at the time, they had found some kind of a mesh material that they would wrap around the pipe, and they zip tied it together because it was like a prototype. And you would put the Nori around the pipe, slide that thing over it, and then lower in the tank with a magnet. And they had a short one for little tanks. They had the longer one for tanks like mine. And I'm using the Nori nibbler on 3/4 inch glass. So if you're wondering, what strength you can use, obviously check their shop to see what fits your needs. But I said, this is really cool. I like it, but can you make it float? And they're like, why? I'm like, because when it comes off, I don't have to put my arm down to here in the tank to get it. And they're like, all right. So they went back to the drawing board and they made me a floating version. So if you're looking for a Nori nibbler, you should tell them that you want the floating one, or you can tell them you want the normal one. And because apparently very few people care that it floats. My buddy AJ bought one and he was using his tank, and then I think it was time to put more on there, and I guess he grabbed the magnet and the thing just went boom to the bottom. I was like, ah. And he made the sad face, which is hilarious. I mean, I totally could see that. And he was like, ah. I was like, yeah, you didn't buy the floating one. Big mistake. So I like to think of logistics, obviously, when I'm buying things. I really like this because it floats. I like the Nori nibbler because it floats. Now, they don't do the screen around with zip ties anymore. They actually 3D print a sleeve that fits right over the Nori. And I'm sorry I don't have it here because it's in the tank, because right before the show, I took a half a sheet, I wrapped it on the pipe, I slid the sleeve over it, and I lowered it into the tank. And where that Antheus is right now in my video, that is where the Nori nibbler sits on the glass, and all my fish go over there and eat it till it's clean and empty again. And then it just sits there anyway because I don't take it out of the tank. And then when I finally do take it out, I take the sleeve off, I put a new piece of Nori, I slide the sleeve back over it, I lower it in the tank, and that's it. It's really easy to use, and I don't have Nori going everywhere in the tank. It is going into the bellies of the fish, and it's a way of feeding dry food in a really effective way. And I don't think that thing was very expensive. This one right here, I believe, is $23 and fits glass up to 3/8, I believe, is its maximum. I don't think you'll have this hold on well on a half-inch tank. But then they make the Mega Mag, I think that's right, Mega Veggie Mag. And that one has a huge magnet, and that's the one I used to use in my tank. So I have this for small tanks, But then imagine when it's double the size, and it's covered with like a black foam, like you might put on the handlebars of a bicycle that are comfort grip. And that part there, it sits on the outside of my tank. And because my tank is on a steel stand, it's a much bigger, more expensive magnet too. And because it's heavier, that one doesn't stick to the glass and stay there as well as this one does. And so sometimes it'll fall, but it doesn't just fall and I didn't know, because I hear a clank, because it falls and just immediately is tracked to the steel stand, either at the high point or the low point of my aquarium stand. And so then I go retrieve it. And I don't pull it, I slide it off, because you don't want to break the seal of the outer part either. So that is how I feed dry foods into my tank. I pre-soak, or I use the chimney, or I wrap them around something or into a clip or a Nori nibbler. And I think that is really all I have to say about this topic today. Like I said, it's not a super long topic, but I do hope it helps you, because my goal was to make your reef keeping experience easier. All right. Now, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. And I will answer them here on the live stream. I do that every single week. It is your chance for a Q&A. And if you end up having, just so you know, if you have something you need to show me, you can post it in Club Mila's Reef. So be sure you do that. In the meantime, I should put one more thing on the screen. I didn't yet, even though I kind of mentioned it briefly. If I can find it. There we go. Shop at milasreef.com. It is my website. I built this website from scratch myself way back in the day. I'm trying to remember. It's either 2003, 2004. I came up with the name Milev's Reef because my username on Reef Central was Milev. And Milev was the initials of my name, Mark E. Levinson. So Milev was born, and then when I needed a website name, I asked a bunch of people what they thought, and everyone seemed to agree Milev's Reef was a good choice. And so that was where I had a repository of information to teach people the things I'd learned. I wrote blogs, I wrote articles, I did Creature ID, I did all this stuff on there and people were using the website like crazy. And then later on, I started selling things from that website, and that's where my little company got started. And in 2009, my company is the only way I make money, so I highly encourage you to shop from me, because it's how I stay in business, just like any other small business in America. All right. I still have pellets everywhere. Everywhere. I think this is more than the Dyson can handle. All right. So if, finally, milesreef.com is the address for my website. And if you're wondering how to pronounce it, it's not Melev's Reef, it's Miles Reef, because it's about me. I'm kidding. It just makes sense. Mark E. Levinson. You know, we don't say Petter, we say Peter. Peter. Milev. It makes sense. I don't know. It makes sense to me. All right. And look, I'm wearing it on my shirt. All right. Let's see. Thomas, I did see your message. I'm sorry I have not gotten with Reef Trace yet about what's going on with yours. We will get your app glitch situation resolved one way or another. We'll figure it out. But I didn't forget about you. I just haven't done it yet. It's been a week. So I apologize. Let's see. Brennan's Reef says, if you need any help, just let me know. I'd be happy to help for free with little laughy faces. I don't know if he means that. Santana Reef says, Coral Magazine is doing a tank feature contest. Okay, I haven't heard about that. So someone needs to link me to that so I can check it out. Fairly Odd says, nice name, so excited for Mark, and I can't imagine the work something like that would take to get together, but we appreciate you taking one for the team. Yeah, I mean, it just seemed like a natural thing to add to my daily grind. Here, let me put together a conference and get all these speakers from around the world and talk to companies and try to raise money for a foundation. And yeah, let's do this. This sounds like a great idea. I talked to my CPA yesterday. My CPA. I'm sorry, 2 days ago. And he said, is there anything I can do to help? And I was like, what would you do? I don't know. And he's like, I'm just offering. I was like, I can't think of anything you could do at this time. And he says, well, can I make a donation? I was like, oh, man, you are so nice. He's a great CPA. So I'll just point him to the CRF thing or something. I don't know. I mean, we'll figure it out. He didn't want a raffle prize. He says, I don't want a conflict of interest. I don't think you winning. I said, the problem is, if you were to win something, you would be forced to set up an aquarium, and then you wouldn't have time to do my taxes. So no, do not buy any raffle tickets, is what I told him. All right. Hey, Mike E., you finally made it to a live. I'm glad you made it. Are you still wearing the face mask to this day? Just curious. I mean, maybe you're in a very dusty area. Reefkeeper says, Eheim does make it now. It's called the feeding station. Yes, you are correct. It took them a few years after what I showed them at Macna, because I walked in with one of these things and said, this is what I make. And then I saw what they made. And they made something that was a thinner plastic that you could kind of snap together and create. And it does exactly what you need. So that's nice. I was glad to see that something happened. But I'm also happy to sell some of these brackets. I do that a lot with companies. You know, a company will show me their new product, and my brain immediately goes into, how would I use that? What about this? What about that? How about this? And I will even, I've done this with Flipper every single time. They will show me something new they came out with, like, oh, that's so neat. Can it do this? And they're like, oh. And they're like, no. I said, can you make that happen? I'm like, we probably could. And they have made all kinds of things, not because of me, but they would enhance it. They'd add an extra feature because I mentioned it. And I've done that with other companies too. I'll just say, I think you need this, even though it should be, how can I make more money? That should be my brain thought. My thought is, how can I make that better for your company? It's a weird thing I do, and I can't explain it, but it's just my personality. I'm cursed to be helpful. Let's see. Thank you, Ryan, for sending a bunch of goodies for the raffle. You're awesome. Thank you. So Ryan is with Slide Lock. He is one of the sponsors of the event, and he said he was honored to support this event, and I am really glad that he said yes. He's a great guy. Nice. Robert says that he uses the Two Low Fishies feeding clip on a 210 with half-inch glass, and it's working just fine. That's great. Kyle wants to know, how do we buy the raffle tickets? That is up to Peter. Peter has to put that on the website, so it hasn't happened yet. There was no reason to have people buy raffle tickets 2 months in advance, but now as we get closer, I don't know. Hopefully it'll be up like a week in advance. I think that's enough time for everyone to start buying their tickets. And then, of course, during the show, you'll be able to buy them because it'll be live and you can just do stuff. But I'll talk with Peter today, I hope. We have a scheduled conference, and so hopefully we can get that locked down so that way you'll have the opportunities to get your tickets. Santana says, are we getting the raffle tickets, or is it a super chat purchase and assigned a ticket? No, we're trying to make this as awesome as possible, but I need to talk with Peter more before I can answer that. But it is not super chat. Michael says, do you have any products that help with taking pictures of frags? I make a couple of things. So one thing I make is the top-down photo box for a DSLR camera, and then I make the smartphone floater, which is a box big enough to fit pretty much every smartphone on the market. Now, if you have like a 14 Pro Max, you might be squeezing the limits of the box. But I can tell you the box itself, the inside of the box is, and I can't even show you that because I lent it to Frank's tanks. I got to build myself a new one. But he needed one recently. He says, can I try it? And so I said, here's mine. But the inside of the box is 8 inches long by 4 inches wide. So if your phone is less than 8 inches tall and less than 4 inches wide, you'll just lay it down in the box. You set the box on the water, and you can take pictures of your corals, of your frags from above, and you get nice, clean pictures. And if you want to get creative, you can do different things. I've used the lens that comes with the Polyp Labs kit, and I stuck that under the camera lens of my phone to filter out the blue. I also have used orange gels, which I used to use a lot in the past, and I have packets of them, floating around here. And I would find the right color, stick it under the lens. So I have this thin membrane of orange, and then I put the camera on top of that square of orange, and it, again, filters out the blue, and I get my nice pictures from above. Both those available. It might be a specialty item on my website, but the smartphone floater, it's real easy. You can just, when you're in the shop on Miller's Reef, you just type in the search box of the shop, because there's a search for the website and there's a search in the shop. So once you're in the shop area, go to that search box and just type in floater, and boom, you'll find it instantly. And then I make a smaller square one that really a phone won't fit in, but it's another way to look down on your tank, look at the clams from above, look at the corals from above. You can use it while you're killing Aptasia down below, and it's instead of wearing a mask on your face, you can just have the box there and have a viewport to look down inside. John says, I always get 30-minute notification on my subscriptions, but only get one when your streams have started. Is there any idea? It could be because I use something called Go Live Now, and I've always done that rather than scheduling my lives. If I scheduled them, you might get a notification sooner. And for all I know, Peter might be planning to do that. He might be scheduling all of these lives that we're going to do for Marna, and that might be a thing. I don't even know. I opened up my software, I type in my title, I say go live now, boom, and here we are talking to each other. And I think that's the difference. Triggerfish says, how will the raffle ticket process work for Marna? Peter says the software we have will allow you to put tickets in baskets for the prize you want to win. So I hope that is how it's going to play out. Brennan's Reef says, what are your thoughts on continuous flow power heads like the Seache Voyager in combination with something like Nero's? I can't think of a downside. I think it's nice to have flow throughout your tank. In the old days, I had maxi jets because I had a small tank. I had a 29 gallon that I ran for 7 years, and I had maxi jets everywhere. And I had one in the bottom. I turned the entire maxi jet upside down so that the motor was sitting on my substrate, and the nozzle was about this far above, and it just blew across the back of the rockwork. And then I had one in the top blowing forward at a 45 degree. I had another one at the top blowing another 45 degree that would bounce off the glass and send it back in. And then I think I had one in the front corner blowing straight across the front to do a circular thing and keep the surface rippling. I had too many power heads in there. And then one day I changed it, removed all the power heads, and I put in something called a closed loop. But normally a closed loop would have bulkheads drilled, the tank is drilled, you have bulkheads, and you have all this plumbing. And I made basically a hang-on back closed loop, and it worked really, really well. I had a mag pump sitting behind the tank. I think it was a Mag 7. And I had made a long PVC pipe that I drilled a bunch of holes in so it could suck in water into the tube and into the Mag 7. And then it came out a couple of nozzles, and I ran that. Oh, and I had that hooked up to a squid I don't know how many of you guys remember the squid, but the squid was this weird looking thing that kind of resembled a human heart, sort of, with a nozzle on each side and a nozzle on the bottom. And the water would go into the squid from below, and there was gears turning inside it that would constantly, from the water movement, made the gears move. There was no electricity to it. And the water would come out one side, and then the gears would keep turning, and then the water came out the other side. And it was the squid, switching current water device, I think is what it was. And they had the small one, and we loved them until they froze up and broke. And you're like, dang it, and you had to go buy a new one. And then they came out with the 1-inch model, much bigger, and it had union connections, so you could disconnect it from your plumbing, which is so much nicer. And I think you could kind of take it apart to like clean out the gears if it got clogged up with something. And that was very popular, to have water come out one side of your tank and then come out the other side. And like it was completely water driven. It didn't need electricity to operate it. And then later on, there was a device called the Ocean Motions device that I never used, but it was a product where water went in the center, and then there was 4 holes on this thing on the top made of aluminum or something, and you'd put 4 pipes, and you could send water anywhere. You could have 1.5 outlets going, and then you'd have opposing outlets going, and you could literally pick how you wanted the Ocean Motion device to do stuff. But for me, continuous flow was my only option with those mag pumps. I mean, with the mag pump or with the Maxi Jets, because it's just on. Nowadays, we have so many features. I've been running Vortex since they came out, which I believe the first prototype I got my hands on was 2006. So it's a long time. And they have Lagoon mode and Reef Crest and Nutrient Export mode and Wave mode and Continuous. So I have all those choices. Tunzi also had different choices. And then they came out with a wave box because their pumps are so adjustable that you could create a wave with this box in the corner of your tank. So we had some features there in the later 2000s, like 2008, 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. But nowadays you've got, think about the gyre that came out. And then later they came out with a thing, I think they called it Blade. And it was like half a gyre. It didn't have both rollers. It had one roller. And you could like put it in the back corner and move that water behind the rock work. And again, you could choose, do you want it to blow this way or do you want it to blow that way? And then on the full gyre, you could have it do this way and have it go this way, or you could have vice versa. And so there's choices of having laminar flow throughout the tank or chaotic flow. I'm a huge fan of chaotic flow. I like putting this power head against that power head and letting them duke it out. And when they slam together, it causes chaos in the middle. And that is something that I've been recommending for years. And that's why when you look at the surface of my water, it's not doing this. It's not doing this. It's always chopping itself up. And it's dynamic. You don't see any oil slicks or anything on the surface of my water. My water is always crystal clear and rippling, and it allows good oxygen exchange and CO2 off-gassing because the water is not still on the top of my tank. Well, Zach, I'm sorry to hear this. He wrote in all caps, dinos, as in dinoflagellates. I have upgraded my 5-gallon tank to a 10-gallon tank, and I have dinos. Double O's. Easiest way to get rid of them? There's no easy way to get rid of dinoflagellates. You should never have let that happen. That's my advice. Don't do it. You're going to need to have nutrients in your tank. If your tank has super low nutrients, it leads to dinoflagellates. There is a dinoflagellate support group on Facebook. I highly recommend you join that. They are going to ask you for a picture of what you saw under a microscope. So you need to buy yourself a small $100 microscope off Amazon. You're going to take a sample of your dinos, your sand, your snot. You're going to put it under the camera. You're going to take a picture with your phone. You're going to look at it, and you're going to post it, and they're going to say, oh, that's osteoporosis, or whatever it's called. I'm sorry. Fortunately, I've never had to deal with dinos like everyone has. I've been a very lucky guy. But they will help you get through it. But it's going to be a series of adding bacteria to the tank, avoiding water changes. There's a bunch of stuff. Ask them. They will help you through it because that's literally why that group exists. Hillbilly Reefer says, off topic. No, it's not. This is Q&A. You can ask anything you want. I just registered an account with Triton ICP testing. I have waited 24 hours for a reply to activate my account. I know this is random, but have you had similar experience? No, you should have gotten an answer within a minute. I mean, all these things that we register online, no matter what it is, power heads or you name it, you fill it all out and then you get an email. I would check your spam folder, I would check your junk folder and see if you got it. If you didn't, I'd send another one in or call them on Monday and talk to Triton in California. You can reach out to Unique Corals because they are the company that handles all the Triton stuff, and they can help you get through this and make sure that you're all locked away and good to go. So that way you can get your testing done and find out what's going on. Oh, okay. Santana Reef says Coral Magazine was sharing the promotion that ChemiPure is doing a featured tanks on their ads. The winner gets a year of products. Wow, that's awesome. So yeah, you guys enter the ChemiPure contest. Might as well. Joaquin says, I feed like 5 different kinds of foods. Why are you yelling, man? You even set off Jack. All right. That's good. I'm glad you're using a mixture of foods. It's okay, Jack. I don't think they're going to keep yelling. Rosano says, do you use any additives to keep your glass clean for longer? So a couple of things will work. Number one, phytoplankton. Dosing phytoplankton to your tank will make the glass clean longer. It just keeps it cleaner. It's weird. I think the phyto is eating the stuff off the glass. And then Benereef. Using the Benereef powder, not the pellets. I don't think the pellets are going to work the magic unless you use a lot of them. But the Benereef powder that I've been using for the last couple of years, I found that when I feed that to my tank, 2 times a week, that the glass cleanings were spread out much further apart. Like I might have to clean my glass every couple of days, and suddenly it was like every 5 days. Like this is really nice. So yeah, Benereef is my method. It has a bacteria inside that food that you activate. You mix up the powder with tank water and stir it well. Wait, let it sit for 5 minutes. Set a timer on your watch or your phone, and it goes beep beep. And then you grab your food and you pour it into the tank, and let it clean the glass for you. That's a joke, but it does kind of. That's kind of how I felt when I was doing it. I remember my tank was kind of dirty. I thought, do I want to clean the glass? I'll just mix up some Benereef and throw that in. It's so much easier, and it did help. Annie's Reef, hello, says, how do you keep your sand sparkling white? Well, I have a lot of flow in the tank, and so it keeps the surface clean. I don't mess with it. I clean the sand bed like once a year, if that. Usually it's more like during the reset. And by the way, I have this crazy idea that probably won't happen, so I'll just describe it because it's great in my mind. During Marna, Dwayne is going to be here the whole time. Dwayne is the one that I fly in from Seattle to help me reset my tank because I don't want to do it by myself. And he gets that. And he gets him a chance to visit with me, which is nice because we're good friends. But I was thinking, or he's made some little comments to me on the phone like, while I'm there, I'll just be kind of working on your tank. So whatever. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool that between presentations, we have a on-the-site reporter that is like, we're here with Dwayne now. He's at Milo's Reef. He's working on the tank. Let's see how he's doing. And just get like an hourly update as he keeps tinkering. It could be the most boring thing ever because it might not look any different till the end, But it might be fun to do a 30-second thing, where he's in the tank and he's done something. And, and he'll describe what he's working on or whatever. Could be kind of an ongoing gig throughout the show. I thought would be kind of cool. Not that it's going to take him 24 hours to work on the tank. He could, but he'd be tired, so I'm not going to expect that of him. But I thought that'd be kind of fun. But when it comes to clean sand, some of the things that help keep sand looking nice and white would be good flow in the tank, and because you don't have detritus resting, settling on top, and having a decent cleanup crew, critters that are going to work through the sand. So Nassarius snails, you need a bunch of them in there that live in the sand, and when you put food in the tank, they all emerge like they come up like little submarines, and now they're running across the sand and they're disturbing it. And then hermit crabs are excellent sand turner overs, so that helps. I know people like to buy gobies, but I hate buying gobies. Not say all gobies. There are some that are fine, but Some people will specifically say the sand sifting goby, you need that. Like, no, 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 don't get that fish. Okay, if you want to, you can. But let me tell you why I don't. The sand sifting goby will grab a mouthful of sand, and then it'll drizzle it out of its gills and goes to another spot and keeps doing this. And you think, oh, great, it's keeping my sand nice and clean. Except anything on the sand bed, it will smother it. It will cover up your acants, it'll cover up your fungias, it'll try to drown your clams in sand. If you have any kind of frags down there, it'll bury them, and by the time you rescue these things, they're dead. They were submerged under the sand, they got no light, they didn't get any circulation, they didn't get enough oxygen, and they're dead skeletons. So I don't like a fish that's going to bury my livestock, so I don't recommend that. In Caitlin's Reef, there is a goby called a Randall's goby, or maybe it's just Randall goby. I always have to Google that. And that fish has been a blessing. It's a nice little fish. It's a nice, friendly guy. Doesn't really touch the sand much at all. It might make a little indentation for its body, but it wants to be with a pistol shrimp. And so it's not covering anything, and nothing is getting murdered by a fish. And that makes me happy. But cucumbers would be another good choice to keep your sand bed clean. I love the tiger tail cucumber. The cucumber has one end that is the mouth and the other end is the butt. And on the mouth end, it has about 5 appendages that look like stalks with like a mop head on the end of each one. And it'll put one down on the sand, grab some sand grains and shove it into its mouth. And then as this is pulling out, the next one's going in. And then as this one's coming out, it's working all 5 of those appendages, and it's constantly doing it. And it's grabbing the sand, consuming it, and pooping out little nuggets of clean sand. And having tiger tail cucumbers in your sand bed will definitely help with keeping the sand looking nice. And starfish. I don't recommend the sand sifting starfish. Those things will destroy all the life in your sand bed. Highly do not recommend them in a reef tank. Don't buy it. If you have a fish only and you want one, that's fine, because you apparently don't care about sand. But for a reef tank, don't put sand sifting starfish in there. But you could put in serpent starfish. And serpent starfish are really good again to detritus off the sand bed. And my reef has one ginormous red serpent. It's really pretty, but it's very, it hides itself. Elusive is the wrong word. I'm trying to think what it is. But it's super shy. And so usually I'll just see an arm or 2 stick out. And when I put food in the tank, it kind of shows more of itself, but still not enough. I really wish it would just travel around the reef so I could enjoy it. But I don't have a lot of open area. My tank's full of corals, and that could be part of the problem. There's nowhere for it to go. So it says I like it here in the rocks, so it's nice and safe. I'll stick out an arm, grab some mysis, and consume it in my little hidey hole. Well, Keen, I was just joking. I haven't done that in like 2 years. But occasionally when I see all caps, I do bring it up and cause a little chaos. But he says it's just easier for him to read and to think. So it's no problem. I get it. Kyle the fish guy says, what's that kind of lettuce-looking coral right over your shoulder? Ah, this one. This one right here is called a scrolling bavona. And I have been growing that thing for 10 years. And actually, that's just a piece of it. And when we did the reset last time, Dwayne was holding the big colony. And I said, Dwayne, it's as big as your head. Lift it up. And as he was lifting it up to his head so I could take a picture of Dwayne's body with a giant coral head, an anthias fell out of it onto the floor. And we had to rescue my lyre tail and throw it back in the reef because it was inside one of those crevices, which was kind of cool. That is Andrea's favorite coral in my reef, and she is one of our moderators. She will be moderating at Marna, so you can look forward to seeing her quite a bit. But yeah, the cactus bavona is really easy. Did I say cactus earlier? Cactus bavona is really easy to care for. And the color of it is kind of tan, but there's hints of green in it. There are different, and if you get really close to her, take a nice macro shot, there's these beautiful striations in every blade. And it's a little fuzzy, just a tiny bit. And it's really easy to take care of. Just stick it in the tank. Rick says, have you ever done a sulfur denitrator? I have not. I've thought about it maybe 2,000 times. I've just never done it. I probably should just do it. I should probably just get one and hook it up and reap the benefits. I just haven't done it. It's just one of those things. So, all right. How are we doing on time? All right, let's see if we got a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap this up, because my nose is itching. I don't like to keep doing stuff on camera. Let me look at the calendar. So, yeah, there's nothing going on. Reminder, just so you know, next weekend there is not an Aquashella in Chattanooga, Reef Stock in Chattanooga. So if for some reason you didn't get the memo and you've been planning on going, don't go because they're not there. Reef Stock Chattanooga was canceled a couple weeks ago. The announcement was made. I don't know if they sent out emails or anything, but they definitely did make the announcement it was canceled. And I mentioned on this show, but just a quick reminder, it's not going to happen. Let's see. All right. I guess that's it. We have nothing. So since there's no more questions happening yet, I'm going to switch to our next gear. I want to remind you today is Water Test Saturday. We want to test our tank for all the parameters so that our fish can be healthy and thriving and our corals continue to grow and not turn white and die. So it's very important that we stay on top of our water parameters. Caitlin said water tests save lives. And she designed this graphic that's on the screen next to me. And I love it. I think it's such a good phrase. She said it during one of our live streams a couple of years ago. 3 years ago almost. And if you're aware of the water parameters of your tank, it's going to save lives. And if you let those parameters get away from you, you're going to lose things. You're going to lose things you paid for. You're going to lose things you call your pets. You're going to lose things that you grew out for a long period of time. And that's the frustrating part of the hobby. So we want to be proactive. And being proactive includes water testing. So please don't neglect that job because it is part of your reef keeping duties. And yes, I said duties. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I am just going to wrap this up. There's nothing else coming in the chat. So perfect time for me to say goodbye. And I will see you again next Saturday. Bye, guys.